Today, Great.com talks with Joseph Bish, who is the Director of Issue Advocacy at Population Media Centre. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organisation on a mission to use entertainment, education and mass media to promote social and cultural change. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the power of creating entertainment that changes lives. Hello, Joe, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Ryan. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. So I really can't wait to dive into what you guys do. So to start with, for me and anybody new here, what is Population Media Centre and what do you do?
Sure. So Population Media Center is a global sustainability nonprofit and a broadcast production partner. We're in the business of creating life-changing, popular entertainment to help raise a more sustainable world. Basically, we concentrate on transforming minds and hearts through the most elemental type of communication that humans have ever known, which is telling stories. But we're trained in the arts and sciences of storytelling for social impact. And we partner with local talent and production teams all around the world to create award-winning popular entertainment for TV, radio, and the web that's positively life-changing. And what we try to do is address the most pressing and fundamental threats to global sustainability. And really by speaking to people's hearts and minds. And we try to inspire communities to choose healthier, more equitable, flourishing world for all.
Wow, yeah, I absolutely love that. And it sounds so incredible. So the next question that I'll go on to then would be, why would you say that is so important?
Well, clearly, the world is facing some serious challenges right now in terms of future human prosperity and how the children and even the adults of today, how are we going to be faring in 10 or 20 years? Clearly, there's a lot of warning signs from both an ecological perspective, from a social perspective in terms of equity, social justice, extreme economic disparities. And I think, at least it's my impression, that these issues are becoming more and more poignant and becoming more and more increasingly sort of front and center in our consciousness. And so, I think that this is a moral call to duty in a lot of senses that, it was always been important for me personally to try to be part of the solution. And that's what PMC is doing all around the world. So to answer your question, I think there's some serious challenges confronting humanity right now. And we're trying to do our small part by telling transformative stories to make a more sustainable future.
And you use the word there, challenges. To then say, since 1988, when it was founded, what have been, some of your greatest challenges or struggles, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think, there's kind of two ways to answer that. I think in the perspective of the global community, we've seen a lot of indicators in an environmental sense going the wrong way. Our carbon emissions keep going up. Our methane emissions keep going up. We're losing more acreages to deforestation. There's the toxification of the whole environment. The ocean is also warming. Species are going extinct. So, the litany sort of goes on. And also, incidentally, global population, the size of the human community on the planet has also grown by several billion people since we were founded. And then I think, from a social economic perspective too, the disparities and sort of injustices around access to resources and people's ability to live healthy lives has grown arguably even more extreme. To where, we have extremely rich people who are consuming way too many resources, if you look at it from a sense of fairness, and we have people unfortunately dying every day because they don't have enough resources. They literally starve to death. So, that kind of gulf between the haves and the have-nots, I think has gotten worse. And so those are some of the big picture challenges. And then in terms of implementing our programs, we've gotten probably better over the last 20 years because we have 20 years of experience. We partner with local production teams, local actors, producers, writers, and we partner with them to create shows in the community that addresses issues that are important to the community. So we've worked broadcast in over 50 countries, and we estimate we've reached over 500 million people since 1998. So, I think in the big picture, in terms of those bigger global challenges, things I think have gotten a little more extreme. And then for us, we feel good about where we've come in the last 20 years, and we want to do more. We wish we were working more.
And I noticed you said there about the sort of the size of the amount of people that you sort of helped and supported and served, really big numbers. So I wanted to ask you then about the whole COVID situation over the last, say, year or coming up to 2 years or whatever it's been now. How has the COVID impacted you guys in what you do, say positively or negatively? And also, how has it impacted, say, the people that you're supporting and serving too?
Yeah, good question. So for our operations, we played it very cautious, as deemed appropriate by all the public health officials. We suspended a lot of our international travel. We went to Zoom like we're doing here today together. So we tried to basically follow best practices to what the public health experts were saying. But pleasingly, and we're proud of this, we had entertainment education shows on the air in multiple countries at the time COVID really started to escalate in March of 2020. So we were able to pivot pretty quickly, and we had loyal audiences already listening to our programs. So we worked with local health ministries and other supporters to put information about COVID both into our stories and then do epilogues at the end. So we were able to quickly and rapidly provide public health information to the audiences we already had. So we feel good about that. But certainly it was a great disruption, as it was for everybody. But we felt like we did what we could to help the situation.
Yeah, of course. So what I wanted to ask you now then would be, you say that you've been, was it 50 countries where you've, say, obviously done what you guys do. So what does the process look like? How do you decide where you're going and who you're filming or recording, etc.?
Yeah, great question. So there's sort of two avenues to where we may end up doing a show. One is sort of the needs of the communities themselves, as they're seen through our mission, which is to, encourage cultural change around the world in support of global sustainability. And then there's also, we act in support of other international development initiatives where we sort of generate interest in public health services. So we may have a show, say, for example, in Nigeria that is broadcast in southern Nigeria, and we will have characters on the air who are wrestling with decisions around fertility or family size or reproductive health. And we may, in partnership with the local health ministries and our other supporters, put information on into our shows about where the actual clinics are, so that people who are really interested in getting reproductive health services in real life will then know where to go on the ground. So we really take a global perspective. We work in the United States, we work in Mexico, we work in sub-Saharan Africa, to Asia. So there's no real litmus test for where we may go. It's really where the opportunity is and where people are trying good work already.
And is there a, say, time frame that you spend in each, say, individual country, or is it just say, dependent on how long it obviously takes?
Yeah, no, we like to stay in countries as long as possible because we create offices there, so we employ people there. We kind of develop a family there. Our country directors are like a family to us, so we try to stay as long as we can. And so, when we found a show, for example, say that we get the funding together, that there's consensus that this would be a good thing. We will go in and we'll hire a country director. We'll hire some monitoring and evaluation talent. And then we'll do field research in the immediate broadcast area to find out what are people talking about, what's important to them. But also, information like what's popular on the radio right now in terms of hit songs, what do people eat for dinner? So we generate this sort of ethnographic study, and then we hand that off to the writers, who then create characters based on that information. And then thinking about what issues we may be addressing. For example, maybe we're trying to encourage people to get tested for HIV. And so the writers will take all that ethnographic information, think about what issues we're trying to promote, and then write that into the storylines. And we have a pretty complex theory of change where we use different character types in our stories who role model different behaviors for the audience to sort of contemplate as they're watching the program. Now, I should say, people generally don't go home after a long days of work to watch a PSA. They want to be entertained. So that's what we do. And that's why it's called entertainment education, is we entertain our audiences first and foremost. And then the educational aspect of it comes in, once that the entertainment value has been established. And as people sort of see these alternative, perhaps worldviews, or perhaps they never thought of getting an HIV test, or maybe they had heard getting an HIV test is dangerous or something to that effect. But our characters can role model, alternative sort of viewpoints on these different issues. And then it's up to the audience themselves, the decisions that they want to make. So most of our programs are at least 100 episodes, sometimes as many as 300 episodes. So this can take place over from anywhere from a year to 3 years of broadcast. And then, we monitor as we go. So we'll do surveys in the field to find out how the program is striking people. Are there characters they like or dislike? Are there things that seem out of place in the story? And we use that audience feedback to then write the latter episodes in the series. And then at the end of the broadcast, we do an end-line survey to find out how the program may have shifted attitudes, belief, or knowledge on certain issues. And then hopefully we will then be able to do another program. And like I said, we really like to stay in countries for as long as possible.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's so nice that you're there for that, say, longer time frame rather than just say a matter of months. You said anywhere between say 1 and 3 years, etc. But then you build say businesses there, and you get people working, etc. Which is, it's incredible to hear. So going on from this, the next question would be then, what say are some of the greatest or biggest needs of the communities that you support, and how are you guys a part of the solution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, community needs are like communities. They're diverse. We tend to focus on raising the status and social well-being of women and girls. That's one of our big, important aspects of our mission that we think is really important, because intervening on the status of women and girls is a really important factor in attaining future global sustainability. And it's just a good thing to be doing. And, you could say also it's a good thing to be doing, and it will help future global sustainability. They're sort of the simultaneous co-joined initiative. And the reason, there are multiple reasons for that, but, I think that some of the specific things we do on that, in terms of trying to help women and girls, is we work on issues like child marriage. So we try to provide communities an alternative viewpoint about why maybe it would be a better idea not to do early and forced marriage with their daughter. We try to destigmatize family planning and reproductive health. Family planning is one of the greatest public health achievements in human history. And in many places in the world, it's still stigmatized for a variety of reasons. It could be patriarchal desire for large families, or fatalistic opposition to contraception at all. And history shows around the world that when women have physical access to reproductive health services and family planning commodities, and they have the agency and social stature to choose their own reproductive autonomy, they will generally tend to have fewer children, healthier families. And that's a net positive both for the family, and then in the bigger picture, thinking about those global sustainability issues we led off with, it's our view that the sooner global population growth stops naturally, the better off the planet will be in terms of the demands that humanity is putting on it. So we see a lot of win-wins with our focus on women and girls. And, that's one of the biggest, I would say, sort of fundamental aspects of who we are, is that real desire to do better for the women and girls of the world.
So going on from that then, what would you say, if I asked you to say one of your greatest success stories from what you guys have done, would anything stand out at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of them. Actually, we did a show in the United States on the Hulu network. It was called East Los High. I think we started that project in the late 2000s, and then it got on the air in the early 2010s. And this was a show about adolescent reproductive health, sort of the social status of girls in Southern California, where research had shown that the teen pregnancy rate was higher than average nationwide there. And we thought this was an opportunity for us. And we actually created a TV series that we ended up partnering with Hulu to air. And that ended up being a great success. It was actually nominated for multiple Daytime Emmy Awards. It became one of the most popular shows on Hulu, and it made a real impact on, I think, the ability of those audience members to know where resources were, where they could get help for different issues, from anywhere from domestic violence to reproductive health and family planning. And so I would say it's probably one of our top line successes that we've had.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yeah, it sounds absolutely great. So what then would you say your vision is for the future?
Well, we would really want to see a sustainable future. Well, we don't want to see a sustainable future. We want a situation where global sustainability has been attained. And in the biggest picture, and getting away from these, very specific interventions that we do, sort of in the bigger picture, we think there's sort of three things that you might be able to say need to happen in a variety of different tactics. But in terms of strategy, I think that the first thing is that the impoverished have to be lifted out of poverty. It's unacceptable, as I said earlier, that, we have people who are gluttonous consumers, nations who are gluttonous consumers. The United States consumes 8 times more resources than a country like Ethiopia, for example. And then within countries too, there's similar sort of stratification of access and use of resources. But at least 2.5 to 3 billion of the 8 billion people on the planet actually need more resources. And they deserve them. They have a fair claim to not live in poverty, I would say. So that's one thing that needs to happen. Another thing that needs to happen is those gluttonous nations and high consuming people need to consume less. We have to figure it out. A country like Luxembourg or something like that, I was looking at the other day, very well-to-do nation, and I did some calculations and realized if the whole world consumed at a level of the average person in Luxembourg, the planet could support only about 1/8 of its current population, just because so many resources are being used there. And it's really, Europe, the United States, a lot of these high-consuming nations need to figure out how they can do with less. So that would be the second thing. And then where we try to add value, again, in this sort of meta perspective, is that we're trying to create the conditions for global population growth to slow down and stop naturally as soon as possible. Because I alluded to before, we feel like that is going to allow those first two things perhaps to happen easier, and certainly would take pressure off the environment and all the other species that we share the planet with. And again, so our strategy for sort of this trying to help global sustainability manifest is multifold, but it really centers on the strategy of increasing the well-being and social status and autonomy of women and girls around the world. And that doesn't mean we're always thinking of women and girls or trying to place undue burdens on them. I mean, it's not up to women and girls to create a sustainable future. It's up to everybody. So we may often in our programs the people we're writing our programs for actually maybe men or boys who maybe have a patriarchal view of women, who think women may be lesser citizens, or who think, they should be able to tell their wives and daughters what to do without, freely, just to have their will sort of be imposed upon the family. So I just want to make that clear too, that, we're not trying to place burdens on anybody. We're trying to uplift and help.
So what can somebody do to help, and what action steps can they take to be a part of this solution?
Good question. I think there's many answers to that. I think the first key is to assess where you're sitting right now and just identify 1, 2, or 3 things that maybe you could personally do. But that could be really varied. I mean, you may forego your next order on Amazon, or you may write your local policymaker and say, I really think we should save that open space. Or you might make a donation to your favorite charity who's maybe working on an environmental issue, or maybe working on, women and girls issues like PMC. There's a lot of different things you could do. And I think that's both good and bad news. I think there's so many challenges that are facing the planet right now that there's a lot of different behavior change, knowledge change, and attitude changes that need to take place. So I don't think that anyone who really wants to help will have a paucity of options to be able to amend their own behavior. Of course, there's power in numbers. So creating discussion communities, getting active, and supporting charities like Population Media Center is a great thing to do too.
And how can somebody support your organization?
It's very easy, populationmedia.org. There's clear calls to actions to donate in multiple ways of transferring funds. We're also interested in volunteers, getting the word out on social media, all that sort of stuff.
Amazing, Joe. Thank you so much. And for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn the importance of educating individuals through entertainment.